Sometimes God chooses the most unlikely people to do his work. This is true in the life of Gideon, the judge of Israel. Because Israel had been in the hands of the Midianites for 7 years, and God appears to Gideon sitting by the winepress, threshing out his wheat. After the angel convinces him by the miracles he performs of the fleece, then he is determined to follow God's plan for his life. Let me read it to you from Judges chapter 7. Then Jerubbaala, that is Gideon, and all the people who were with him rose early and encamped beside the well of Harod. We're right here beside the well of Harod, or beside the stream. So that the camp of the Midianites was on the north side of them by the hill of Moreh in the valley. And the Lord said to Gideon, the people who are with you are too many for me to give the Midianites into your hands, lest Israel claim glory for itself against me, saying, my own hand has saved me. Now therefore proclaim in the hearing of the people, saying, whoever is fearful and afraid, let him turn and depart at once from Mount Gilead. And 22,000 of the people returned, and 10,000 remained. But the Lord said to Gideon, the people are still too many. Bring them down to the water, and I will test them for you there. Then it will be that of whom I say to you, this one shall go with you, the same shall go with you. And the one whomsoever I say unto you, this one shall not go with you, the same shall not go. So he brought the people down to the water, and the Lord said to Gideon, every one who laps from the water with his tongue, as a dog laps, you shall set apart by himself, likewise every one who gets down on his knees to drink. And the number of those who lapped, putting their hands to their mouth, was 300 men, but all the rest of the people got down on their knees to drink water. Then the Lord said to Gideon, by the 300 men who lapped I will save you, and deliver the Midianites into your hands, that all the other people go, every man to his place. So the people took provisions and their trumpets in their hands, and he sent away all the rest of the Israelis, every man to his tent, and retained those 300 men. Now the camp of Midian was below in the valley. It happened on the same night that the Lord said to him, arise, go down against the camp, for I have delivered it into your hands. But if you are afraid to go down to the camp with Purah your servant, and you shall hear what they say, and afterwards your hands shall be strengthened to go down against the camp. Then he went down with Purah his servant to the outposts of the armed men that were in the camp. Now the Midianites, the Amalekites, all the people of the east were lying in the valley, as numerous as locusts, and their camels were without number, as the sand of the seashore by multitude. And when Gideon had come, there was a man telling a dream to his companions. He said, I have had a dream. To my surprise, a loaf of barley bread tumbled into the camp of Midian. It came to a tent and struck so that it fell over, and the tent collapsed. Then his companion entered and said, this is nothing else but the sword of Gideon, the son of Joash, a man of Israel. Into his hand God has delivered Midian and the whole camp. And so it was. When Gideon heard the telling of the dream and its interpretation that he worshiped God, he returned to the camp of Israel and said, arise, for the Lord hath delivered the camp of Midian into your hand. Then he divided the 300 men into 3 companies. He put a trumpet into every man's hand, and with empty pitchers and torches inside the pitchers. And he said to them, look at me and do likewise. Watch, and when I come to the edge of the camp, you shall do as I do. When I blow the trumpet, I and all who are with me, then you also blow the trumpets on every side of the whole camp, and say, the sword of the Lord and of Gideon. So Gideon and the 100 men who were with him came to the outposts of the camp at the beginning of the middle watch, just as they had posted the watch. And they blew the trumpets, and broke the pitchers that were in their hands. Then the 3 companies blew the trumpets and broke the pitchers. They held the torches in their hands, and the trumpets in their right hands for blowing. And they cried, the sword of the Lord and of Gideon. And every man stood in his place all around the camp. And the whole army ran and cried out and fled. When the 300 blew the trumpets, the Lord set every man's sword against his companion throughout the whole camp, and the army fled to Beth Acacia, toward Zerah, as far as the border of Abel Melohoth by Tabbath. And the men of Israel gathered together from Naphtali, Asher, and all Manasseh, and pursued the Midianites. Then Gideon sent messengers throughout all the mountains of Ephraim, saying, Come down against the Midianites, and see from them the watering places as far as Bethbara and the Jordan. Then all the men of Ephraim gathered together and seized the watering places as far as Bethbara and Jordan. And they captured 2 princes of the Midianites, Oreb and Zeeb. They killed Oreb at the rock of Oreb, and Zeeb they killed at the winepress of Zeeb. They pursued the Midianites and brought the heads of Oreb and Zeeb to Gideon on the other side of Jordan. And so, with Gideon's 300 men, he subdued the mighty Midianites. And here is Arie, who has been a soldier himself in the Israeli army, to tell us about this battle. Arie.
Yeah. So let us start with the name. The name of this spring, biblical name, is Ma'ayan Harod, the spring of Harod. What is the meaning Harod? We have very clear words in the story that says in Judges that God says to them, bring them down to the spring, and everyone that is terribly afraid, Hared, terribly afraid, let him go again, away of him. In English it's written, whoever is fearful and afraid. In Hebrew, Hared. And look what a name. The name of the spring is called the spring of the place of the test of those who are terribly afraid. Ma'ayan Harod. We call it also Gideon Spring because here in this place God made this important issue. Who he chose and who he didn't choose. In a moment we'll talk about this. What was the system? What exactly happened here? How God chose those that he chose and why he chose them and not the others. We'll do it in a moment inside the water. But before this, let us look what God says. What are the commandments? According to Deuteronomy chapter 20, God says to Israel, whenever you go to war, to battle against your enemies and see horses and chariots and people more numerous than you, do not be afraid of them. And then he says very clear, take one of the priests, he will stand in front of the Israelites and say, everyone that started building a home and never finished it, let him go, leave the battle and go home. So it might be that he will be killed and other one will get his inheritance. It's not allowed. Everyone that planted a vineyard and didn't yet eat from the fruit, go home. So maybe he will be killed and another one will inherit the vineyard. But then he said the third thing. Everyone that betrothed a woman, let him go home, marry her, be with her. Maybe he will be killed in the war and another one will take his wife. Look how clear God is with the people before the war. And then what God says, after all these people are leaving the camp, and again, because they had a reason to do it, then take a special man, is like prince of war, and he will stand in front of all Israel, and look what he will say. Hear me, O Israel, if anybody of you, his heart is melting because he is afraid, he feels fearful, let him now leave the battle and go home. This is the command of God. And he says why? Because if he's not leaving the battle, what will be? He will start putting the fear to other people. And let me tell you that fear in war is the hardest plague that I know. The hardest disease. It goes from one to the other quicker than any other illness that I know. One man which is fearful, what he can cause to all the group around. So let him go to his home. I don't need him. Now, how many people were here? 33,000. Think about it. How many left? 23,000. We speak about 2/3 of the people they left. Why? Because they were fearful. Here comes a great question. How it could be that later on in the same place up on the mountain, King Saul stood. He saw the Philistines in Shunem, and the Bible said that his heart was fearful. And he says a terrible, great fearful. According to the Bible, such a king is not allowed to take his people to the war. He should leave the camp. So clear. So let us come back here. 10,000 remained. They were not afraid. They had no problem at home. So what was wrong with them? Why again God wanted to test them? Because God says, I want you, Gideon. There are too many people. I don't want you. Now, very important. I don't want people to say, we delivered ourselves with our own hands. You see? God didn't want to give the glory to man. He wanted to get the glory. And only then he sent them to the last test, the real test, which I tell you as a warrior, man, I like this test so much. Before I go to the war, let me tell you what I was taught as a boy grown in Israel. And I was taught like this. Look, Gideon tested them to see who, even in a hard situation, when a tension, the enemy around, who all the time thinks about to fight back the enemies. So even when he was going down to the water, still his arm or his rifle or his arrow or his sword is close to him. You see, and he's looking around himself and he's drinking like this and he's watchful to see around where the enemy is. That's what I was taught. And 300 of them were like this, watching around. I felt that something was wrong in this story. What was wrong there? Because always these 300 say, you see, we were the best. In Israel we say the Sayeret, the best of the best unit. We did it because we know what is enemy. And we were watching, not like the others. Where will go all the glory? To these 300 people, right? So I felt that there is something more strong and something more, I would say, spiritual battle that was here. And I looked for a long time. What really happened here in this story? And that's what I'm going to share with you now. I'm going to enter into the water and show you what I understand happened here. So let us see what really happened here. There are two groups of people. One group, he says, like dog that is licking with his tongue. And the other group, a group that didn't bend on their knees. What it means? You know, the dog has 4 legs. All of us have seen dogs around us. And we saw when the dogs are drinking water, they are lying on their 4 legs like this, right? And what they do, they turn their head down to the water and lick and down there. Because I'm not a dog, I'm a man, I will do it this way. I take the water and drinking with my tongue. But again, look on my knees, look on my 4 legs. I'm a good dog, right? This is the way the dogs are drinking. Their knees are not bent. Their knees are not on the floor. Let me just, before I go on, dog is a good animal in the Bible, you know, to surprise you? Not. In most of the connotations, the dogs are something bad. I mean something defile. And to say the people that will be like dogs, wow, it's a very bad. I mean, people would not like to be in this category, right? Like dog? You see how God says? What are the second group? The second group that are kneeling on their knees. Look, I'm showing you what is the meaning. You see what happens? Now I kneel on my knees. It's fresh water, excellent. And look, what is the meaning? When I do this, what it says, and they're leaking, right? So I do it like this. Look on me carefully. Does it remind you something? It's really good water. Does it remind you something? I will help you. If we open the Bible in 1 Kings chapter 19, the same famous chapter that Elijah is running for his life all the way to Mount Horeb. And Elijah was complaining why he wanted to die, because I am the only one that survived, God. And they killed all the other prophets, and I'm the only one they want to kill me. And God told him, you are wrong, Elijah. You are terribly wrong. And look what God says. There are still 7,000 people who never kneeled on their knees to the Baal and never kissed the Baal. You see the point? And this, I believe, is the picture. The Baal worshippers, the first thing that they come home, they are running to the corner where they have their little carpet, and they have the image of the Baal, and they really run there licking and kissing him and saying, thank you, Baal. Thank you for a very fruitful day. Thank you for very good relations I had. Thank you, Baal. And kiss him on their knees down. And God hated it. Hated it. But look how beautiful here. God is bringing them to a very hard situation, because they were up on the mountain. It's written they were up in Mount Gilead. And Gideon, God told him, Gideon brought him down to the water. Now they are thirsty. They didn't drink for hours water. So look what happens. They are doing instinctively what they are doing always. And if every day they run to the carpet and kiss and bow to the Baal, when they run to the water and they run, come inside, fall, thank you. But instead of thank you, they're drinking. Maybe they say to him, thank you, Baal, for this water. Thank you, Baal, for this water. Because I don't want them. I don't want them. Out. Wow. From 10,000, 9,700 did it. Think about this. It was much easier to say to the group, all those who didn't kneel down on their knees, get aside. All those who were like, look, like dogs, move aside. I believe that at the beginning, all these 300, they felt very shameful, because they did like dogs. So maybe they thought that they are not good for the war. So they moved aside. And moved aside. And then God told Gideon, I want them. I want this group. Because they never bowed to the Baal. So they never had this instinct even. And look how beautiful. He took these 300. And these men, when they went to war, you know what? They couldn't have even a sword. Because you can't have in one hand a torch, and another hand you have a shofar, and you blow it. Tell me where I can have a sword. You see, it was 100% God was there in the war, and not these people. So I'm so glad to share with you, not by might, but by my spirit, says the Lord. And this is the place to remind us this truth again and again and again.